Again, strong words coming from our neighbors to the north. And on that note, we bring in now Brigadier General of the IDF Reserves, Amir Avivi, is the Director of Israel's Defense and Security Forum and former Deputy Commander of the Gaza Strip Division. Thanks for being with us again, Amir. First of all, on these claims from Nasrallah, I mean, our own defense establishment here has been warning for many years that the capabilities have been going up of Hezbollah, that their arsenal now bigger than all of Europe, that pointed at us here. Can they hit anywhere in Israel with their missiles at this point?
Well, first of all, it's true. The arsenal Hezbollah has can hit anywhere in Israel. They're growing this arsenal for years. Iran is continuing to invest, but also we are preparing. And we have to send a clear message that any attempt to inflict on Israel's sovereignty, whether it's in the sea or in the land, will show a strong response. We shouldn't be intimidated by a terrorist. We should be ready to defend our international waters and our land anytime needed.
Especially against Hezbollah here. Now, they're getting, especially, I would argue, Hezbollah's getting pretty chesty these days, throwing threats around, flying drones at the natural gas infrastructure. Why do they appear to be so emboldened right now, even issuing this apparent ultimatum around September and the natural gas resources?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. One is that Iran is feeling stronger and emboldened because we see the almost complete surrender of Europe and the U.S. administration to the Iranians. The Iranians are moving fast towards nuclear capabilities, continuing the enrichment, and there is no strong stance against them. The talks are not going anywhere. We saw Biden's visit with a message that was not strong enough. And we were unhappy about that, and also our Sunni Arab allies. Biden talked about continuing with diplomacy while we need to prepare for a military option against Iranian installations. The other thing is that Iran's economy has risen dramatically. It reached the GDP of Russia. $1.6 trillion. This is due to the oil prices.
Yeah.
So there is more money. With more money, they can equip Hezbollah. So this is one reason. The other reason is the inner politics in Lebanon. Lebanon is in a complete collapse. There are more and more fingers pointed to Hezbollah's responsibility and Iran's responsibility for what is happening in Lebanon. And usually in these cases, what Hezbollah does is point back to an external issue.
Right, try to refocus.
In this case, it's always easier to try to attack Israel and create a crisis while moving the problem from the Lebanon that is falling apart.
Yeah, we're left wondering just how much Lebanese people are still buying that. Hey, don't forget, look south at the Israeli boogeyman here. But Iran, you bring this up so importantly here, shutting down the UN cameras now, saying none of this surveillance will be returned until that quote-unquote deal has been reached, as they put it now. As you mentioned, no apparent good or functional contacts with the West, the U.S., anyone really on that side of the issue. Where does this leave Israel? We saw Prime Minister Lapid alongside President Biden appearing to disagree somewhat about the ultimate red line issues or how this should be dealt with, saying that a military option should be on the table. What appears to be the status right now with Iran's nuclear program?
Well, I think, first of all, this agreement is completely irrelevant. And obviously, Israel is calling for the U.S. and Europe to stop these talks and bring back sanctions. But unfortunately, even sanctions are not too relevant anymore. It's very hard to impose them. We see a closer cooperation between Russia, Iran, China. Iran is exporting oil to China and to the east, and the West is not able to control it and prevent it. So also sanctions have become a tool that is not as effective as it was before. And this, sadly enough, leaves us with one main option. Yeah. It's a military attack on Iran installations, and it's time for the West, and certainly for Israel, to accelerate preparations and prepare for this for this scenario that eventually we'll have to deal with.
It certainly feels that way. Another set of responsive action that we've seen Israel apparently, and this all allegedly, really invest in is the use of spies, essentially, going the clandestine route right now, taking all sorts of action to disrupt the program. Iran now claiming that they've rounded up a network of Israeli spies. I mean, this is on top of the recent sweep of Iranian intel leaders. Has Israel truly gotten extremely deep in terms of what they can accomplish on the ground quietly? Let's put it that way in Iran.
So Israel, for many, many years, has done quite a lot to try to not stop, but affect the progress of the Iranian nuclear plan. Some of these things have been published and known, others no. Yeah. Of course, Israel is operating through the Mossad to do whatever is needed, and the head of the Mossad talked about it when he went into office, that he will do anything within his hands to prevent Iran from being nuclear. And indeed, Israel is doing a lot. And the Iranians occasionally say that they caught some operatives, and they're saying it also now. Israel is not responding to this claim.
Amir, what's your thoughts on one more issue?
Don't really know.
Get you out of here on this, about a minute left here. I mean, Israel has something going on that Iran does not. A leadership, not crisis, but uncertainty right now. We don't know who's going to be in charge in just a matter of months. How is this political moment a factor in this standoff with Iran? Is it an opportunity for Iran?
Well, I think that although Israel is in a continuous political turmoil, and now with the government waiting for elections, the Ministry of Defense and the Mossad and the Shabak continue to do the job they need to do to protect Israel. So the army is moving forward with its preparations and readiness. So is the Mossad, so is the Shabak. So I don't think it's affecting dramatically, and I don't see it as such a big opportunity. In any moment, if there is a crisis, a government, a united government can be built in a day.
Right.
So I wouldn't suggest to our enemies.
It's an issue that seems to bridge the aisle.
They can take advantage of that.
Yes, yeah, we hear all sides really talking strongly on Iran. Amir Avivi, thanks for being with us again. An important topic for us all.